G'day guys, Ross here and welcome to A Roundabout with Ross on a beautiful spring afternoon. Now I'm sitting here with a compost bin that I've just set up about a week ago. I did do a video at the time, but it was a cold, wet, windy day. So beautiful day today. I'll take you through the basics of setting up a compost. We're not going to get too scientific, it's not an in-depth study, but we'll do the basics of setting it up, what to put in it and how to maintain it. First thing, the size of your compost bin. Now this is a 400 litre GJ bin, pretty standard. They're probably about $100 on the hardware, $90 to $100. Off marketplace, you can pick these up between 30 and 50, mostly around 50. I was lucky, this was $30. Lady wanted to get rid of it and I wanted it, so we were both happy. So if you've got a small place, you might want one of the 250 litre or even the 150 litre. 150 litre brand new are like $49, so they're not very expensive. You can also get different brands. You get the little square ones and they've got a little slidey thing at the bottom where you can actually get the compost out as you go. So you know, it rots at the top and at the bottom you take it out. And you can get the barrels that either sit on wheels or sit on a frame, and you can turn the handle and then that helps aerate it. And aeration is one of the keys to good composting. Problem with them, and I've had a couple, is they get really super heavy really quickly. So you don't have to put a lot of stuff in there and you're going to find them really hard to turn. Second problem you've got is all compost bins get hot in summer and you'll end up with either earthworms or compost worms or both. Some people say they're the same or some people say they're specialised. But either way, you'll have worms in here that will help break down the organic matter. You'll have slaters, you'll have all sorts of bugs in here. The worms, when it gets hot, need to get back into the ground. So what you want is open at the bottom and you need contact with the soil so they can go down, and when it gets cool again, they'll come back up into the compost bin. So I'm not a fan of those barrels, but you do you, I'll do me. Okay, so this is 400 litres. Now, I normally sit this on a piece of mesh about 6 mil. Now I've seen mice go through 13 mil chicken wire, which is the really small stuff. The mesh I use usually is 6 mil, Avery mesh, and they're not going to go through that. Okay, so I've opened the bin on my old compost bin. I had 6 or 7 mice looking at me. All right, so they get in there and they eat all the food that you've put out. What I had in my shed, I had some of this fiberglass mesh. Now this stuff's used for making safety rams because it's got a grit in it, so it's really grippy. And they use it on lookouts and all sorts of stuff. Anywhere we need a lot of grip. You can pick this up usually pretty cheaply. The mesh you're looking for, I saw some at Bunnings a bit earlier, and it was 6 mil, but you needed 2 pieces under something like this, and there's $30 straight away. I think these cost me $10 each, so I went with one of these. The advantage of the fiberglass is because it's a solid base, once I've got it down on the ground and the bin sits on top of it, there's no gaps, so mice can't get under it either. Okay, so I thought that was quite good. So that goes down first. The second thing, I'm sitting here next to my where my raised garden beds are in my vegetable garden, and around the outside, for aesthetic purposes really, is I have this nice big thick chunky wooden mulch, just pine mulch. Right, so I take it out about once every year to 18 months because it starts to break down, and I replace it. So all the old stuff I'll put into a pile and I'll use it for other things. So first thing I do, put your compost down and put about 100 to 150 mil of nice big thick chunky wood chips in if you can. Don't use stones because you want to be able to separate this when it's all finished composting. Stones is not what you want to do. What that does, it helps oxygen get up from underneath. It also helps drainage. So if this gets a bit moist, then it'll drain nicely, okay? And that's pretty much a setup of it. Now, the next thing we're to think about is how these work. So you're going to have critters in here that are going to eat through things. They're going to help, but you're also going to have lots of microbes, okay? And there you've got anaerobic and aerobic. Anaerobic means microbes that'll work without air, okay? So, you know, when they work, it's slower, it's messier, it's smellier, it's slimy, and the nutrients coming out of everything are not as bioavailable. You want an aerobic process. So what we'll do now, we'll kick over to the other bin and I'll actually show you how we help aerate, because the aeration of these is very important. The other one's full and I've just got myself a new aerator, and we'll click over and we'll see how that works. Rightio, now we've got this other bin down the back here. So this one here, don't know whether you can see that. Yeah, I think you can see it okay. This has sunk 7 or 8 inches since last week. I've only just stopped putting stuff in here. I put a little bit of moisture in it yesterday, had a bucket of water, quite a bit drained out the bottom, but it's basically It's moist but it's not wet. Now it's got a lot of passion fruit vine in at the moment, which are quite tough and wiry. I did a big prune in preparation for the new growth, which is starting to happen. That's going to take a while for insects to chew through it and microbes to get into it, because it's a tough thing. Not so much the leaves; they'll break down a bit quicker, as will the food that's in there. There's lots of food in there, but yes, that's looking okay. Now, as far as aerating it, I have one of these little fellas. Now, that's just a basic compost turner. I only bought this recently, $25. And if you've got a big compost bin like this, it's worth the money. If you've got a small one, a pitchfork's probably okay. You could even get in there with your hand if you needed to, wear some gloves and turn it around. So all you do with this, spin it around, a little bit of a shake, and just lift it up a little bit in the middle as well. And I'll probably do that in one or two other places. Yep. There we go. One more should be the trick. All right, so after a period of time, what will happen, instead of that just shaking, it will mix everything, because things will start to break down. At the moment, they're not mixing because I've got some fairly robust bits of material in there, and until they start breaking down, they won't mix together. But eventually they'll start to mix, and at that point in time, the composting is really well and truly underway. What I'll do is, over summer, I'll come down here at least once a week, probably twice a week, because it's right near where I'm doing some retaining walls anyway. Check the moisture, give it a quick aeration, and that is your maintenance done until such time as everything's finished. All right, and we're back. Now, we're back at the original one that we're setting up, and we're going to talk about what goes in here. You might have seen in the last bin that at the very top there was a whole lot of brown leaves, and that's because that's how you finish each layer. You finish it with carbon, okay? It's not just your nitrogen. So your nitrogen is your products like your grass clippings, your kitchen scraps, cooked rice, cooked pasta, coffee grounds, tea bags without the staple, dried herbs and spices, crushed eggshells, that sort of stuff. That's all your nitrogen or your fresher products. That is going to make up actually only a small percent of your compost. Some people say about a quarter to a third. I say just under half. It just depends on who you read and what you look up. I think you can just experiment, and it depends on what you've got. So what I tend to do is, rather than try and get enough material to layer an entire bin, and bear in mind that it's 900 by 900, so it's a pretty big area. If I try and layer it, it'll be very, very small. What I tend to do is put a whole lot of scrap in one area, and then I'll build up carbon on top. More scrap, build up carbon, and as I go around, this bin just fills up in a spiral motion. So the carbon that I'm using, think brown. Okay, so I've got here this actually a very large potting tub, and I've got lots and lots of leaves. Now, don't use gum leaves. They're full of oil, and oil's one of the things you do not put in a compost bin. These are ornamental pear leaves. I have millions of them coming off. I've got 24 ornamental pear trees. Lots and lots of these leaves come out over winter. I save them up, maple leaves, things like that, things that'll break down. So that makes up a bulk of the carbon material. In itself, leaves have very little nutritional value, but they're adding carbon in, and they're actually helping aeration. The other things you can use are, you can use your wood chips, the same ones I had on the bottom. You could use some of those as well. Cardboard, so dunny roll holders, paper towel holders, the brown cardboard, not the waxy stuff, and nothing with plastic on it or stickers. So not your nice packaging, but anything else. And that will include things like egg cartons without the plastic on them, so take the labels off, they can go in there. Shredded paper, but not anything with glossy photos on it. Thinking what else goes on. That's probably it. The brown paper bags you get from the supermarkets these days. If you rip them and they can't use them anymore, then rip them up into pieces and put them in there as well. Okay, so anything like that forms a carbon layer, and you want about 1.5 times that to every 1 of nitrogen. Now, the things that you can't put in, you cannot or should not absolutely put in meat, fish, or dairy. Now, you can put those in a bokashi bin, which is a different type of composting. It's a Japanese system, and it's anaerobic, and it uses particular bacteria that you actually spray onto it. Okay, so we might do a session on that when I set one up eventually, so not at this point in time. So meat-based stuff, stay out of here, and that includes feces from animals, so cat litter, dog feces, not in your bin. Anything that's been treated, whether it's been treated with herbicide or pesticide, weeds, treated wood, painted wood, all of that does not belong in here, okay? So just think, if you're making a really nice compost, when it breaks down, you're going to take it, you're going to put it in a veggie garden or a garden. You're potentially growing food. I mean, you might put it around your ornamentals, but if you're going to grow food, you do not want any of that anywhere near your food. It's all part of the food chain. So that's probably it for today. So thank you for your time. If you just follow those basic principles, get the bin you want, the right size, set it up in the right space, make sure it's got aeration, and then layer your nitrogen and your carbon. Make sure the moisture's kept up, but not too silly. In summer, maybe check it every 4 or 5 days. In winter, check it once a week, even once every 2 weeks, and aerate it. At the moment, I've only got this much material. Once that goes halfway up, I'll be making sure that I'm getting the forklift or the fork in there. Not a forklift, that's a bit of overkill. We'll get a fork in there, or we'll get that aerator in and just lift it up, shake it, make sure you get some oxygen in. Let the worms come and go. If you can put one of these in a slightly shaded area, that will help in summer. If you can't, well, as long as the worms can get into the ground, you should be safe. Once this is full, you're looking at 3 to 6 months for it to fully break down. And then after that, happy days, empty it, stick it in your garden, and then start again. All right, thanks for joining me today. Happy gardening. See you later.